Kick MMA. Today I've got Peter Barrett with me. He fights Steve Garcia on August 8th. How are you doing today?
Oh, great, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, so obviously you're in the car right now. Where have you been? Have you been training today?
So I had my strength and conditioning this morning. Then I had boxing, and I just left some body work, some physical therapy stuff.
So how's training been going with everything that's going on? We've got the lockdown and plenty of other things happening.
Training has been amazingly and incredibly selfish. Everybody gets together with one goal in mind, and that's to make sure I'm ready for this fight. So normally I'm going to jiu-jitsu class, Muay Thai class, all these other classes at the gym. But considering what's going on, the only time people are at the gym are with me in a small group to get me ready for the fight. So it's been awesome to have all the attention on me.
That's actually something I've heard from a couple of guys now, is that they're saying because there's only a few people allowed in the gym, they're actually getting a better camp and a better experience. Is that what you're finding? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody's focused on making sure the best version of me is going to be showing up on August 8th. So, it's great.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, you are dropping down in weight for this one.
So most of my pro career, I've split between 145 and 155. The goal and the mission was always to fight and compete at 145 in the UFC. But locally, I didn't really have an issue competing at 155. So I figured, why bother suck weight if I don't have to, if I can continue to rack up wins the way I need to and finishes the way I want to. I just removed one stress from the equation by fighting at 155, and there's actually a handful of catch weight fights in there mixed in at 150 as well.
And just as you were saying, it is an extra stress to cut that extra 10 pounds. So how are you dealing with that ahead of the fight?
I'm doing great. I like to keep my weight a little bit lighter, but granted, with only, I think it was like a 5-week notice on this fight, or a 6-week notice, so I was a little bit heavier than I had wanted to be, but I dropped 10 pounds in about a week, got me down into the mid-60s, and now I'm all gravy. My goal right now is to drop any 10 to 15 pounds between now and getting to Las Vegas, and then doing the last 5 to 7 pounds of water weight. And I've always found that to be the most successful way with cutting weight. I've tried doing 20 pounds in a week. Granted, when I was doing that, IVs were still allowed at the UFC level, so I would use them at the regional level. And once they were removed by USADA, I stopped using IVs. So then I had to figure a better way to cut the weight if I can't use that IV rehydration. So I didn't want to rely on it my whole career and then get to the UFC and have to ditch it. So I made the changes then, so getting to the UFC wouldn't be as big of a shock to the way I do things. So I really diet hard, dropped the weight, the last month of the camp, and then suck anywhere from, competing at 155, I would sweat like 3 to 5 pounds, and I'm looking to do 5 to 7 this time.
Okay, so it's not too bad. So as you said, then you're in the UFC now. It's your UFC debut. Obviously, you're going to be excited, but it has been quite a long layoff. We've seen you on Contender Series almost a year ago now, and it's been a long wait. So how's that wait been for you? Are you anxious? Are you excited? How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Right after the Contender, I'm from Boston. We tried to get on the Boston card. It didn't work out. And then we just stayed ready. So I was never really, I tried to stay within anywhere from 5 to 6 weeks to be fight ready. And then, I got offered a fight at 155. We said no. I had the blessing to compete at 145. So then we went back to the waiting pool again, just staying ready, staying in shape. And then we got offered Donny Henry in April. COVID shut that down. And now here we are with Steve Garcia. So I've been ready. I've been waiting. I've been patient. What I didn't want to do was bug them, beg them. I didn't want to seem needy. I just wanted, we were told when the right fight presents itself, be patient, we'll get you a good fight. And, I think that's what's come to fruition. Granted, did I anticipate waiting 345 days to do it again? No. That sucks. I mean, I almost did a whole lap around the sun here to get my hand raised. But everything happens for a reason. I do truly believe that. And the last year has been crazy considering what's been going on in the world. And, maybe I needed to go through that to better understand why I need to appreciate this.
And as you said before, it was Donny Henry originally on the books for you, UFC Lincoln, but when that got cancelled, it'd already been quite a while since you'd signed with the UFC. So what were the emotions about that one? Did you see it coming, or was it just a bitter blow?
Yeah, I mean, with the lockdown and the quarantines and everything, getting the news that fight was off was actually a really big relief for me. My girlfriend and I own a house together, and she works at a trauma hospital in Boston, so she was elbows deep in this mess from the beginning. So we had to self-quarantine on top of the social distancing protocols that everybody was calling for. So I was in a position where the gyms were closed, I had nowhere to train, and we couldn't in our right minds let people come into our house to train with me to go home and potentially get their family sick. So, or their grandparents or their aunts or their uncles, or insert any relative here, you know what I mean? When everything first happened, we didn't really know what we were dealing with, how the virus worked, how it really spread. We were just doing everything we were told to do, and that meant I also had to quarantine myself away from everybody because I was living with a first responder who works in a trauma hospital and dealt with the pandemic on a daily basis. So to get that fight scrapped gave me the ability to breathe again, because in my head I was alone in my basement on an Airdyne bike with a heavy bag trying to get ready for the biggest fight of my life. And I couldn't wrap my head around how I had worked my whole, the last 10 years of my life for this one opportunity, and this is how I was going to do it. And, I folded under the pressure, and that's all right. The fight got canceled. I was in my own head. I kind of broke down and built myself back up. But, one of the things that really helped me get through that was seeing guys like my buddy Calvin become a better fighter and just put on one of the best performances of his life. And seeing things like that just, made me reevaluate how I was looking at things, and made me realize that I needed to focus on what I could control, let go of what I couldn't, and just put my best foot forward and get the job done. And, that's, in real time what happened. I went back to a book that I always go to. The book's Relentless by Tim Grover. He was Michael Jordan's personal trainer. That book speaks volumes to me on many different levels, and I needed to revisit that good book to get my head right, and it was a recommendation that Calvin said. Calvin was like, when was the last time you read or listened to Relentless? It's been a while, so why don't you go get back into that and see if that fixes everything. And it did. It really helped put a lot of things into perspective. So getting that fight called gave me a big breath of regroup, build myself back up, get back into training without a deadline. And then once everything started syncing up, we reached back out to let the UFC know that I was ready to reschedule it to get a fight. So once we did that, fast forward, here we are getting ready for Steve Garcia.
Just before we leave that, Donny Henry, we seen him compete over the weekend and didn't go too well for him. Was there ever any chance you might have been the guy to fight Donny Henry on UFC 251? Was that ever anything got spoken to you?
No. So when everything got scrapped, Dana White held Zoom calls with all the athletes. Said, listen, if you're not training and you don't have the ability to train, we don't want you guys to fight in that circumstance. If you're not comfortable and you're not ready to fight, there's no pressure from us. You tell us when you're ready to fight. The guys that had their fights canceled, which would have been 250 in my event, canceled last minute. He said we would have preference to get scheduled when we were ready to fight. But if we weren't able to, don't worry about it. So, but when I had reached out to them to let them know I was ready, I think Danny had already reached out to them to let them know he was ready, and where he was in Europe, they were trying to get all the European fighters to Fight Island before they realized they were going to be able to get some of the U.S. guys over there as well. So I think that's why we saw him booked against the guy that he fought, because I think he's the Eastern European guy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, Mr. Finland, that was.
Yeah, me and Danny stay in touch over Instagram. We're hoping to be able to get rescheduled in the future. We both agree it'd be a great fight for us and a great fight for the fans. But we'll see what happens. Who knows what the direction the UFC takes with him after that fight.
Okay, so it is Steve Garcia now, and I just want to get your thoughts on him as an opponent.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, the best thing about switching from Donny Henry to Steve Garcia was the fact that I just had to go from fighting an orthodox striker to a southpaw striker, and I'm a southpaw myself. So what that says is a lot of southpaws don't know how to fight southpaws, but my last fight on the regional scene was against another high-level southpaw, and I took his head off in the first round. But I also train with a lot of southpaws. One of my main training partners, Chip Maraza-Pollard, he's the Lion Fight light cruiserweight world champion. He's defended his belt, I think, 7 or 8 times at this point. But he's a phenomenal striker, and he gives me a lot of good work and a lot of good looks. We've got, if you're a southpaw in Boston right now, you're probably working with me either at Lozon's or at Sit Yat Tong. So we just changed up from orthodox to southpaw. We started doing some homework on him, started seeing some tendencies, started noticing trends throughout his fights, and putting together a solid game plan to dismantle him. I mean, I love the fight. I think it's going to be a barn burner. I think it's a bonusable fight for the two of us. So I love it. I love the matchup.
And in terms of planning your route to victory, how do you see yourself getting this done? What is your path to victory? How are you better than him? What are his holes? Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so he's missed weight 2 out of the last 3 times he's fought. He fought on the Contender at 135. He showed up at 139. He fought LFA at 145. He showed up at like 147 or 148. And then finally got a last-minute call to go fight at 155 in January when he got his call to the UFC. So right off the rip, I'm looking at his discipline. If you listen to the commentators during his fights, they make a note to say how he doesn't listen to his corner. So that's 2 flags on his discipline. He gasses really hard in the first round. By the 3-minute mark in 2 or 3 of his fights, I've noticed that he's panting heavy because he comes out looking to finish right off the rip. So again, that also is a 3rd strike on his discipline. But we're seeing these things over and over. There's trends in the way that he fights. So does he check low kicks? No, he doesn't. At least not the inside kick. So what's going to tell me he's going to check the outside kick? You know what I mean? So I'm going to be looking for that low leg. I'm going to be looking, for big naked shots. We've been working active range. I mean, I don't want to give you my whole game plan, but we've been doing our homework. As you can tell, like I've got trends on this kid that we're going to expose.
Yeah, and you've obviously pointed out a few flaws there, but what's he good at? What have you got to look out for? Is it that 3-minute burst at the start of round 1 you've got to pay attention to?
Definitely one of the things that we're looking at is his initial burst. There's a lot of power shots without setup. So when he fights orthodox guys, we see a lot of big left kicks coming up, and they land. And then if they do land, they're dangerous. Again, he throws in a lot of overhand lefts that he kind of sets up a little bit. But he's a really, really rangy boxer and a really loopy boxer, and he's able to create power off those loopy punches. But if you watch his fight with Luis Pena, he just walked forward and got taken down. Start of the round, walk forward, taken down. Start of the round, walk forward, taken down. So I'm looking at that saying he probably doesn't have the best wrestling or jiu-jitsu either. And I wrestled all through high school. I'm a purple belt in the gi, and I'm now under Joe Lozon, which is all no gi. So, God forbid if I can't handle him on the feet, we're gonna go to the ground and we're gonna inflict some pain there. So I definitely would say I would best him on the ground with the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, and even on our feet. So I'm incredibly confident, not cocky, confident and reserved for this fight, because I know he's a dangerous kid. You don't really get easy fights in the UFC, but we're going to capitalize on the things that I did mention for sure.
Okay. And just to go back 1 minute, just back to the Contender Series, obviously you were successful there. And I'm just wondering how that would stand you in good stead with, you know, the lack of crowd there. There's probably going to be zero crowd when you fight next time. Is that something that bothers you? Do you feed off the crowd?
No, not at, I mean, yeah, everybody feeds off the crowd to an extent, but having fought in this facility already, having walked into this arena, knowing what it's going to feel like to walk into a quiet room to get ready to fight, knowing that we're going to be able to hear each other's corners, like all of those things I've already dealt with. So it's like I've got that ace up my sleeve. So if anything, it's definitely an advantage for me, because it was pretty startling and shocking then when I realized what was going on for the Contender. So now that I don't have that like epiphany that he's going to have when he gets in there and realizes it, I think that'll hold in my favor as well, for sure.
And just finally, before I let you go, now you're in the UFC, I'm sure you've got, you know, dreams and goals, and I'm just wondering what yours are, you know, for the rest of 2020 and then looking a bit further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, my goal for the rest of 2020 is definitely finish this fight quick, bonus, come home unscathed, call up Sean Shelby and say, hey, let's rock and roll in like 3 or 4 weeks. I know that they're looking for fighters that are just ready to fight. You know, we're seeing some guys fight 2 or 3 times already this summer. So I want to get on that train. You know, I want to be a guy that's always ready, within weight, can make weight on a week or two's notice. And, you know, building the momentum off this fight is obviously going to make it a lot easier to do that. So I'd like to fight 2 to 3 more times. Well, let's say 2 to 3 times for the year, and we're in July. So at least 1 or 2 more times for the rest of the year. And then the goal at that point, renegotiate new contract and then start climbing. I'm 34 in August. It's no secret. I'm not a young buck by any means. So if I'm going to get as far as I can possibly get, I got to do it soon. There's no let's hang out here as a preliminary guy. I need to put these dudes away, let everybody know that I'm here for sure, and then start chopping at the ladder.